If everyone can come a little closer, if possible. Is it possible to get some water?
Some water?
Yeah. Right behind.
Can't turn because of it's frozen. Well, thank you. Is that clock correct or is that clock?
No, it's correct.
Okay.
That's a correct clock.
Om Maganatiramandasa Gana Gana Salakaya Chaksuramidamyena Tasmai Sri Garave Namaha. So I've been requested to speak something on Krishna consciousness. The other day I was recollecting something one of my godbrothers told me, but take what you like out of it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But I couldn't remember exactly who it was, but I usually do. But it's definitely authoritative. It was either Dhananjaya or not Shamasundar. Probably Dhananjaya Prabhu and Srila Prabhu. It could have, no, it wasn't good. It was probably Dhananjaya. And because we were discussing among that godbrother and myself, we were discussing about presenting Krishna consciousness, which is the topic today, and the topic yesterday, and the topic tomorrow. Unlike other news feeds, sometimes news feeds can go, they have like there was one, I don't want to name the names because then it would bring unnecessary vibrations, but there was a news feed, it was like in early 1990s. It went on for 18 months about somebody who supposedly killed somebody.
Oh, yeah.
It was all the time, 24 hours, every station. Somehow it became the distraction for America at that time. But then after a certain time, it goes this. Sometimes news is already boring before it gets out. Most things are just like newspapers. They have a destination to be gone. Old news is not good news. So we were discussing about the presenting this very deep, but at the same time very simple philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and the topic came to Srila Prabhupada was invited to a radio station, speak on a radio station, I believe in Amsterdam, or Germany, I can't remember that detail. And they humbly and little sheepishly presented to Srila Prabhupada that there was a restriction, that he had only 3 minutes. And Prabhupada says, that is not to worry. We can present the entire philosophy of Krishna consciousness in 3 minutes. And I don't think that lecture was recorded. So I'll relate an incident that something came to my mind. I was discussing with someone about Krishna consciousness, and a devotee, someone who's already participating. And I was trying to emphasize a point about our focus on the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. And some experience I had with Srila Prabhupada came to mind, which for others they might look at it in a different way, but for me it just solidified a concept that I already had. Because I had been in India before ISKCON and I could read the Sanskrit Devanagari and know how to pronounce, and I had been reading Gita and memorized it and this and that. So when I came to the temple, there were some devotees who studied. People used to start asking me questions, including the temple president, Rupanuga. Whenever he needed a verse from the Gita, he'd open the curtain. You know, there was a sliding curtain to the kitchen. Where is that verse? So he closed the curtain. So, but I didn't think, I know very much. I thought that one whole 33 years more, I had been practicing for some 5 years, so I thought 33 years more, and then maybe I should take first initiation, and then I wouldn't be very qualified. But, still people ask you a question, and so you have some responsibility to say either I don't know, I don't have a clue, but we can find out, or let us, give the answer. But there was one question that this second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam was coming out in chapters at that time. Every time something could be ready, they printed it in a small little book. Remember? Mm-hmm. That was very early. So it started coming out one book, and there was one, the Super Soul, picture red cover. So that was the discussion in there about the demigods, which in modern life, they don't mind to have all of these, Marvel comic films and everything else, everything supernatural, but when you come to discussion of, the demigods, that's like, evil, and of course, you see in the Greeks and the Romans, and in other Aztec cultures, and the Egyptian, there was definitely there, the influence. And throughout Southeast Asia, and China, people had an understanding how the universe works, that there are controllers, like on this planet, there are controllers of everything, right? There are people who control the traffic, railway systems, there are so many controllers, and there are controllers of the controllers. So it would seem logically that that might be there, just because we can't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. But the Vedas talk extensively. So the question was, Tejiyas, how do the demigods perform their function? There was a particular verse that there was a demigod that could control the opening and closing of the eyelids. So I said, I don't think that's very important, but, I don't know how they do it. So I got initiated, and then Srila Prabhupada, reluctantly but happily, and then Srila Prabhupada personally called me to India, and then I was there trying to be a little distant from him, because he was like Madhvacharya, great soul, one should be very respectful around everyone, but especially is such a great soul. Then he initiated this relationship with me to come into his room. So some months had passed in which I had been around him and had discussions on practical things. And so he was in Calcutta, and we have it's an old building on 3 Albert Road, and very British style, a big veranda, like marble, but pure white and black. And Srila Prabhupada's room is there. I thought, maybe I should, because other devotees had asked me after, I thought, maybe I should ask Srila Prabhupada, but I had a doubt, because in the Vedas, they teach us how we should approach a spiritual master. It's become a fashion. I should find a spiritual master. I should meditate. I was in a store yesterday getting my spectacles, glasses, and I was handing out these roses. And actually the whole store got excited. They said, "You never smelled roses?" I said, "Yes, because they're Rama roses." Those little yellow roses. Roses gone crazy. So we have a few others that have gone crazy. Actually, they're all going crazy, but especially Rama Devi, Bessie. She loves to serve Krishna. 2,000 roses in 1 year, 2-year-old plant, with fragrance. Nobody has, this species has no fragrance, it's noted. Anyway, so then I was listening and this lady was saying, "Oh, this is the way to meditate, you have to learn to think of nothing, but you can't really do that." And I kind of let it go on. I didn't want to, start lecturing them. They were just happy chanting Rama, Rama, and other flowers, so that was sufficient for that time, that step. So people want to have a guru and they want to meditate, but, people just kind of invent it, They're just looking for a moment that their mind is not like some big tumbling machine, like, have these drums to mix sand, and, put all types of rocks in there and things and make this terrible clattering sound. That's how the minds are so much of the time. We've begun Krishna consciousness, and to a certain degree our minds have become peaceful to a certain percentage of the time, depending upon how much we've imbibed Krishna consciousness internally and externally, to know how to keep that for ourselves. One of the very first, if not the first thing that one experiences by chanting Hare Krishna and Krishna consciousness is know how to tap into a peaceful mood. Sometimes we disrupt ourselves from doing that. But we know how to tap into peaceful mood by thinking of Krishna. Krishna, and immediately the whole mind can become peaceful. So I thought, let me finally ask Srila Prabhupada a question, because it says in the Bhagavad Gita that one should seek out a spiritual master. One should very humbly serve him, please him, and when that person, that self-realized soul, person who knows the truth, or person who's crystal clear in the truth, one who's not speculation, but actually can see the truth. It's present before him, everything is lucid and clear. When that person will say, now I will guide you on this path. So the word in that verse, 34th verse, or the 4th chapter of the Gita, is Pariprashna. One should ask nice questions, relevant questions. Prashna means to ask a question. Pariprashna means pari, a superior kind of thing. So I was a little doubtful, but it was in my mind, let me get this off my chest because another devotee will ask me, and then I feel a little, even though I didn't mind to say I don't know. Some people don't like saying I don't know, but it's much better to say, well, how do, like in India, Srila Prabhupada told us to indoctrinate the Westerners. I had been there already. And the Indians had taught me, when I was going to India, if you want to ask directions, ask from at least 3 people. You say, which way is it to slide down? Well, so you can go that way, you can go that way, you can go that way. All of which might be true, but there's the real true way. And rather than say, I don't know, oftentimes people will say, give you some speculation. So I thought, okay, I'll serve these devotees. And so I asked Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, it is stated in the Bhagavatam that the demigods control all the actions in the material nature. And devotees have asked me, so I don't know. Prabhupada's replied to me, he says, I'm going to paraphrase it because I guess it wasn't bad. With your limited intelligence, he said it a little more sharply, he became upset. With your limited intelligence, how can you understand the infinite? The workings of the demigods. I paraphrased it. So this is our situation. We have very limited intelligence, yet we are thinking that my brain, pump up my brain, and I can know so many things, and I'm very clever, and look, all the things that we're doing that are very clever. And therefore we become very intelligent and we know the absolute truth. Or that it's not important at all. What is that? That we purchased Machiavellian philosophy and Chanakya Pandit's philosophy also. That what is it? Eat, drink, and be merry, right? Because you only have this life. So we come to, most people are in this, even though they might be religious and they believe there's an afterlife, they're caught in this dilemma of the whole modern perception of life, which is that even though we might know that there is a soul, it's that we have a soul, and but we are this body, and right now we should, the tingles of the senses of this body should be satisfied. Right? Senses, they tingle. We want to see something beautiful, so we go searching for something beautiful. And we want to hear something beautiful, so we go searching for something that we can hear. And want to taste something delicious and delectable that will excite us and tantalize us and fulfill our... But it never works. The history, we can see that in a sense, the more that we do this, the less satisfied we are. So there's an art of satisfaction that people try to learn, and they call it downsizing and this and that. They try to make some artificial relationship, and things do improve a bit. They don't exactly know how, but from the vantage point of the Bhagavad Gita, we know exactly why people, by doing certain things, they feel a little bit better. But it's never enough. It's never the full thing. So when I was a wee little boy of 7 years old, I didn't have the exact words. I came up with the idea that I didn't want to wind up at the end of my life like everybody else I had met. And not that I was thinking of them in any inferior way, but people used to come and tell me their whole life history, and I used to ask questions, and I saw that nobody I had met and nobody I had heard of, nobody that anybody else had heard of, could say at the time of death that, hey, I've gotten the very best life possible. So I didn't want to wind up that, so I started a series of inquiries and experiments that got me to this Krishna consciousness. So, why not just, instead of being a little bit happy, why not be completely happy? Why not be so happy that you want to be singing in the rain? See, it's our natural propensity. We can see children, even though from our understanding, everyone has had a past life. Everyone has had a past life. Everyone acts differently. Everyone responds differently. Everyone is so unique. We may be similar in certain ways, in many ways, but everyone is completely unique, a completely distinctive person. You can meet hundreds of thousands of people, and if you pay a little attention, even after a few minutes, you'll see, oh, this person has many similarities with the other people. They're very different. Because everyone is separate. Everyone is an individual soul. This is not a chemical composition. Actually, the idea in industry, like when in industry, they take engineering and they make things. And every one of them are identical. I mean, there could be some defects. I mean, if you look in the deeper point from physics, every thing is a little different. But they're all the same. When this microphone, there's maybe 100,000 microphones made, they're all the same. We don't want the individuality characteristics. So this philosophy that nature combines and there's, produced mechanically from some mechanical formula that came out of nowhere, then everyone should be the same. That would be the logical thing. But even these flowers, I handed out some flowers, you look at every single bud, and it's different. Even every bud of the plant. So this diversity comes from some core which is spirit. Which is spirit. So the first principle is that we are not material, we are spiritual. So material can never satisfy spiritual, and material can never be satisfied. So this is the first principle of happiness and peace. If you're trying to be satisfied and don't, what would the opinion be here? I want to get satisfied and I don't, so will that lead me to happiness or unhappiness? Who says happiness? I want to do something, but I can't do it. Will that make me happy?
No.
Does anybody say that I need to eat, but I don't get food? Will that make me happy?
No.
Does anybody say that I want to eat, but I don't get food, that will make me happy?
Well, maybe.
Maybe. But not certainly.
No.
But if you eat...
Sometimes if you think you want something and you don't get it, then when you realize later on, the thing I wanted was bad for me.
Yes, but you're experiencing unhappiness and then
Yeah.
looking at it afterwards.
Yeah,
Because if you didn't experience unhappiness, you wouldn't see that it was bad for you.
right.
Just like if we take our hand and we have normal, like neurology, and we touch something hot, what will we experience?
Pain.
Yes, pain. So then it's supposed to teach us a lesson.
Yes.
It's hot, So, Puna Parna Svacha Charikatanam, that we do this again and again, which is a saying that this material enjoyment is chewing the chewed. So I had something, I chewed it. It wasn't very tasty. In fact, I didn't like it. I bought an orange. What is this? This fruit? This currant fruit?
Satsumi.
Satsumi. So we pick one satsumi and then we chew it, but it's a sour satsumi. So put it down. Oh, I'll try it again. Sour. So how many times you have to try that sour to see that it's not sour? So this is the first thing in our illusion or ignorance of this material life, is that we're trying the same thing that doesn't make us happy, but because we don't know anything else, but we still want to be happy, then you think, woo, try it again, Like sometimes we'll get something to eat someplace, and we'll say, never again. Then we're stuck in a certain situation, and then, okay, I'll try it again. Maybe it's not going to be so bad. So how many times do we have to try things? So we're trying to become happy exclusively and only through this material body. But there's a total difference between the material body and the soul. Although people are religious, especially here in the South, we respect that religiosity. It's very admirable. It's very nice. The deep religiosity, even conviction. Hardly you'll find an atheist. Partly that's social, because who wants to say they're an atheist in the South? But generally, people are God-fearing and God-believing. But they'll say, you say, is there a soul? Yes, it is. I have a soul. I've brought this up many times. I have a soul. But the principle is, I am a soul, but how does the soul act? How does the soul act? Just like if I have a glove on in which I can't feel anything, and then I touch something, and people say, oh, see how soft it is. I don't know, I have a big glove on. So we're trying to feel our real self, our real composition, our real nature, which is happiness. Every single person, although, people may represent happiness in different perverted, opposite ways. Some people feel that suffering brings them happiness, but it's the happiness that they're after, not the suffering. The suffering is a means to the end which has become happy, and no one wants to be unhappy. Everybody wants to be peaceful. You ask anybody when they're by themselves, if they'll speak their own mind, if you could look into people's mind. Because I go around and I talk to people, and sometimes I'll joke about the flowers. I'll say, these are happy drops. And they say, oh, I could use a little of that. A little bit of peace, you know. So the truth is, when people are truly honest with themselves, which is very much required in spiritual life, is to be honest with oneself. It all begins. Yes, I'm not very intelligent. Yes, I may have a lot of money, but who am I? The illusion is to start to see everything material, and then we see nothing spiritual. Pride especially, that blinds us. So it says that one should humbly approach a person who is a self-realized soul and make significant, relevant inquiries. So taking that experience I had and my own thing, I sorted out that actually people are talking and asking so many questions. Prabhu said in the beginning of the day that the birds are up and chirping. So if you know bird language, by any chance, does anybody know bird language? It's not hard to figure it out. But the birds, their chirping has, though sometimes they just like to sing, you know. But it has meaning, you know. Like in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, they'll chirp and they'll have whole conversations. And they're asking, where can we go and get some food? And then they came back and they said, did you get the food? So everyone is asking questions. But the spiritual direction is to ask questions that will bring us the real happiness, the real peace, and Krishna consciousness, which is the cause of the normalcy. We are by nature Krishna conscious. We are by nature wanting to be happy. We are by nature wanting not to suffer. We are by nature wanting not to die, unless a person's crazy. Actually, probably the worst thing you can bring up in any conversation is about death. You know, unless a person's philosophical, but when it really comes down to it, and you really have to pin it down, no one really wants to confront the possibility of death. Because we're eternal. That's why we don't like to die. You know, no one wants their relatives to die. Why don't I like my relative to die? Well, besides the suffering that they might experience, I'm never going to see them again. Because I'm eternal, they're eternal, I want to know them eternally. This is the intuitive nature. So we don't have to philosophically do this. The wonderful thing is, Krishna consciousness is just like a great spacecraft. One time I had this vision, kind of like a metaphorical vision. I was in Ukraine, at our center there, and there were many visitors. Oh my goodness, that place is so packed. We have 50 centers in Ukraine. It's just like boom.
50?
Yes, 50 centers in Ukraine. It's a small country. And, you know, the devotees are so enthusiastic, and the visitors were enthusiastic. And, you know, they're not religious kind of people. You know, they're not philosophical. They allow themselves. And people were so happy. Everyone was so happy. I thought, you know, a Krishna shuttle is going to come down and the ramp's going to be there and everybody can just enter in. Prabhupada would be begging, come on, everybody back to God. So Krishna consciousness, the Lord has felt great pain that we've forgotten Him. And He came as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And He made it really easy. He said, I'll make it really easy. You only have to do one thing. Sincerely. Engage in devotional service. Out of which the easiest and most effective and immediate of which is what? Chanting Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What should you do? You should Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So we don't understand what happens. You know, it's just like a child is ignorant and they don't know. You know, like I remember up to the age, I think of like, although I had some experiences to teach me otherwise, I think up to the age of 11, because we didn't watch the TV very much. First 6 years, they only turned on the TV to watch the presidential addresses. That's it. You know, that's why we got, because my brother was in the war, and they thought, you know, it's maybe the end of the war, and he'll come home, we can watch the TV. And then, you know, so I could swear that people came through the cable into the TV, and then they became enlarged through some magnifying glass, and they went home. Because I was an ignorant child. Although I was studying physics and engineering, I still thought that there were people who came in the TV, and when they'd get killed, I said, oh, I would cry, oh, their mothers are going to be so sad, how much they must have paid their family to let them die, I used to worry about that. Although we were talking about making a neutron bomb or other things, I just thought, it's because I was ignorant, We didn't know the true fact. We're covered, Like, until you taste something, you have no idea how delicious it could be, Then someone says, hey, have a taste. Oh, it looks very strange. No. Trust me. Trust it. Have a little taste. Then once we taste it, we know, wow, this is incredible. Where can I get this? So it's not difficult. It's not difficult. There is no hindrance in this path. It's the whole shebang. You just have to chant Krishna, you just have to hear Krishna one time. And all the sins that one could have committed in billions and billions of lives, Lord is all potent. In one moment, the Lord, and this is in any religion, any philosophy, except for impersonalism or atheism, in one moment, with the thought of the Lord, the whole creation was arranged and everything was set in motion, that it could go from beginning to end. Everything is perfect and complete. Effortlessly. For us, everything is a struggle. Nothing comes easy. Even for the most intelligent person, everything is difficult for them. They just find a lot of people who can do certain things in certain categories that they know how to do. And it takes hundreds and thousands of people to accomplish one simple thing. It really does. If you see in our organization, it's really complex. But there's nothing complex here. At once, one chants Hare Krishna, the doorway is open for everything. But it takes a little time, because our brains are a little deranged. So do we have any brief questions? We have 5 minutes before the rush for prasadam. Mataji will come out, and I agree, everyone should get on time. From our guests, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes?
I've always had the philosophy that when you reach the end of your life, if you like life too much, you won't be satisfied with dying. So maybe we shouldn't be so happy at the end of life.
Well, no one is satisfied at the end of life unless they're self-realized. Because most people, almost everyone, 99.99%, even those who are on the spiritual path, they don't have much clear vision of what's going to happen at the time of death. Or
I died and I left my body and then I came back, but I never went very far into that realm.
you died in this body?
Yeah.
I see.
So I have no fear of death.
Well, you left the body, but
Yeah.
you didn't.
I left my body. It was
Yes.
above my body,
Uh-huh.
out of the city of San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and just perfect calm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like perfect, like time stood still.
Well, according to the spiritual encyclopedia of the Vedas, what leaves the body, because the body didn't die, because if the body had died,
Right.
when it's dead, it's dead. There's nothing that can revive the body. There's two interactions. One is chemical, physical, material, and then there's the soul, which is like a car without a battery doesn't run. So it's just a simple parallel, not a perfect example. So the battery of the body, in this analogy, is the soul. But the soul rides in a vehicle in the material world, and that vehicle is the ahankar. So it consists of the identity, the mind, and the intelligence, and we call that the subtle body. So the experience you're relating, mid-grade yogis, they can do it at will. They can leave their body and they can go anywhere, and they can do many things once they're out. It's like at will and on demand. I don't want to describe it because that's not the topic. Nor do I want to encourage people to go on those roller coaster rides, especially untrained, or to teach you how to do it. No, won't.
In my case, I just stopped breathing for about half an hour.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. But the soul was floating on that other body.
Yeah, I was out of my body. I didn't like look down and see my body because I was
Yes.
looking around at the earth.
But you were still thinking, so that
Yeah, I was thinking. I was
right. So you're floating on what actually comes back in the body. We call that the subtle body.
just looking at the city, thinking how it looked like a cancer sore on the face of the earth.
Yes. So you saw a little bit. So, but we can determine where we go at the end of life in this yoga practice.
Yeah.
So that's what. So we chant Hare Krishna, and then we will get the perfect next life.
I don't know when the end will come. I fear pain more than I fear death.
Yes, that's true. Suffering is there.
Yeah.
Death is the end. But then what happens? So there are many ways to look at this. But you can chant Hare Krishna now and become peaceful and happy. That's the experiment. Yeah. Anything else? Because we have 1 or 2 minutes. Yes.
Could you repeat again about billions of lives about the... could you repeat that statement again?
I'm not quite sure.
Could you repeat the statement again about billions of lifetimes, something? Could you repeat that statement?
I'm not sure what that was.
Billions of lifetimes?
Or millions of lifetimes? I think you were talking something about the chanting, right? About
Oh, the sin that you create, if you chant once, you can demolish the
Oh
sin.
yes, the relief. So part of the science of Godhead, part of the science that we learn from the Encyclopedia of Vedic Wisdom is, what is karma? It's become a household word, karma, dharma, You hear, popular singers, they'll say, oh, you got to have good karma, it's so it's become almost like luck. It's used like good luck,
Isn't karma just action and reaction?
Yes, it's similar, more close to what the Bible says, as you sow, you shall reap. But karma is that we're forced to act in this material world.
I mean, it's not like you have karma brownie points floating around in space.
No, it's complex. It's a whole complex. It's a very accurate understanding. So what keeps us in this material world, which is why we're suffering, is our past karma, which may be good karma or bad karma. Good karma can keep us in this material world in a worse way than bad karma. Like if you suffer, then you know you shouldn't do something, right? Like, when you train children or train an employee or train a dog, I'm not comparing them. When you give training to someone, even a plant, the positive things get rewarded positively and the things they do wrong should be negative. And life is like that. It's, in a sense, I do something and it pains me, I stop, and then I do something and it's pleasure. So the concept of karma is that I do great things, wonderful things, and I'll go to heaven where I can enjoy the same material things, which have maybe some connection to God, but optionally. There's an option, like at the end of your checkout page, there's an option. Would you like to give, $5 for these people? So it's an option. God is there, and He's giving me a lot. I won the lottery, and great, I'll enjoy. And thank God. Thank God. Can I tell? I think I told this story before I go, but it's not exactly about Indian, but it's a funny story. Can I bear with you 1.5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
So I used to be preaching in India and in Delhi, and I was very austere, summertime, no hat, and I carry 25 pounds in each bag and 2 hands. And in the buses, jumping in the 2 hands is quite difficult because you have to actually run and jump on the bus to get in the bus because it's so crowded. And there was a place, Multan, which is where Safdarjung Hospital is, and opposite that. It so happened when I was going to Dodora, I met one gentleman, Mr. Sood, I believe. I'm not remembering his name. I'll just call him Mr. Sud for now. So he was always very nice, and he'd always buy some book from me, and he would always give me some water. He was a vegetarian. Sometimes he'd give me a piece of fruit. And it was a welcome thing, you know. It's midday, and it's 115 degrees out, so a little respite. And you know, and I'd ask him, "Sir, would you please become a member?" He said, "I'll give somebody else as a member, my friends." You know, he said, "Next time, Swamiji." You know, in India they call everybody Swamiji. So then, you know, I came and he said, "Okay, I promise you, next time you come, I'll become a life member. I swear to Krishna." You know? I said, "You don't need to swear to Krishna, that's okay." So next time I came, he said, "Oh, Swamiji, I have very good news for you." I said, you know, for me, you know, I'm okay, you know. But, you know, I said, "Oh, really? That's very nice." He said, "Good news. You know what happened? After you last time, I went." I heard this.
No, but I'm thinking
I went and there was a lottery, and this is India, you know, there was very few lotteries. It's government run, and it goes to, you know, half go to some government projects and half come back or something like that. He said, I really wanted, I said to Krishna, I said, "I really want to satisfy this Tejiyas Swami, you know, so please give me the money, my business is not going so good, I don't want to disappoint him." So he went and he said, "I bought a lottery ticket, the 500,000 rupee, 5 lakh lottery ticket." And I said, "Krishna, if you give me this money, I will become a life member of the Hare Krishna movement." So he says, "And guess what, Swamiji? I won!" So I'm waiting, you know, I'm okay. I'm very relaxed about it. He said, "I won. And now I know that Govinda is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I know he's the Paramatma." I said, "Oh, that's very interesting." I said, "How is that?" He said, Govinda knew, Krishna knew, that if I won, that I would be reluctant to even give you the 5,555 rupees. So he took half from the lottery. He took his half. I won 250,000. So Krishna got 250,000 from me. Your God, Krishna, he knows everything. Very interesting philosophy.
Yeah. Very nice.
Of course, I explained to him, you know.
very convenient.
Yes, very interesting. Like Govinda Nama, you know, in Bengal,
Yeah.
when they're winnowing the rice and the rice blows away, so they say, "Oh, Nama." All right, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Please chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.